Welcome everybody today. My name is Paul Chatlin, and I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I'm also the founder of the Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group and the co-founder of the Sage Circle Alliance. I'm going to share with you tonight my story. Along with that, I will describe what the Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group is all about and what the Sage Circle Alliance is all about. I hope at the end there'll be some questions. I'm not a doctor, a nutritionist, but I've been in the depth of nutrition and trying to help people with lifestyle changes for the last 12 years. So let me start with my personal story to you. As a very young man, I was one of three boys with 19 cousins, so 16 were girls. So in my family, the boys were a little bit coveted, and we used to hang around with all my uncles. And between the ages of 10 and 12, my four uncles who I loved all had heart disease, two of which died at the table with bypass surgery. One of them was never mentally the same. And the other one is still, was around for the next 15, 20 years after bypass. So that was my early recollection of heart disease within my family. Now we're going to move a little bit forward. I'm the father of three sons. And in my 20s, I would, like most people, get checkups every year. And my doctor at the time would tell me, well, your cholesterol's going up. So he started putting me on a statin. First statin he put me on, and by the way, my cholesterol number at that time was 350. So back in so let's see, we're talking 40 years ago, there were three statins. There was Lipitor, Zocor, and Pravastatin. So he put me on Zocor to start, and I had the side effects. So one day I woke up and barely move with an elevated muscle enzymes. So after getting off the medication, 2 days later, I was fine. So then he put me on Lipitor. And again, better results. It was able to drop my cholesterol numbers under 300, probably in the 240, 250 range. But again, I got the adverse side effects. And the only other cholesterol medication that was available was Pravastatin. So he put me on 80 milligrams. And that's what I stayed on for the next 25 years. And my cholesterol baseline for 25 years at 280. So now we'll fast forward. I'm 54 years old, and I wake up one day, and there's an enormous amount of pain in my chest. And I just lay in bed, and after about 10 or 15 minutes, it goes away. So I move on with my day. And then at night, it would affect me a little bit. And this continued for about 3 months. I didn't, I wasn't smart enough to immediately go see a doctor. I just lived with it for about 3 months. And then one day I said, this can't continue. I went and saw my doctor. And what he said to me is, let's go get a heart. He heard a heart murmur that he had not heard before. So he set me up the next day with a cardiologist. And I went through the battery of tests other than a heart catheter. And at the end of all the tests, the cardiologist said, from his experience, I'm sorry to tell you, you're probably going to need bypass surgery or potentially a heart transplant. Well, bypass surgery, I knew about. The heart transplant, that really put a shock into me. So I knew at that point I had to stop on the way home and talk to my wife. I did not want to tell her, and I did not want to worry her. And for all us married men, it was probably one of the dumber things I've done. I should have gotten her involved earlier. So I went into her office and I said, come on, let's go in the conference room, and I need to tell you some things. And as the tears were flowing between us both, her boss walks in, and I had to explain to him what was going on. And trust the fact that in talking to him, it started really 3 miracles of my life that changed me forevermore. So after hearing it, he said, hey, before you do anything, before you go get a heart catheter, which I had scheduled, He said, let me see if I can get you into the Cleveland Clinic. Well, getting into the Cleveland Clinic is not that easy. There's usually a long waiting list of people to come in and, be seen. And fortunate enough, the day before I was going to be going to Beaumont Hospital, the local hospital, to get some tests, the heart catheter done, he got me into the Cleveland Clinic. So I arrived at the Cleveland Clinic, never been there before. And they assigned me a doctor. And based on the tests that he received, I was assigned to the doctor who's head of heart transplant. That's what they thought I needed. So we did the same battery of tests, and that lasted most of the day. And then in the early evening, we had the heart catheter done. And for those people who've never had a heart catheter, you can do it through the groin or through the wrist. I was fortunate, it goes through the wrist. So the recovery is half, it took me like 3-4 hours of recovery and I was able to go home. But I remember being in and out. I'm kind of like, I was kind of half there and half not there, but I kept hearing my cardiologist say, yes, yes. And when the heart catheter was done, I asked my doctor, Dr. Hanna, why were you so happy? He says, Paul, I'm happy to tell you, you don't need a heart transplant, but you need immediate bypass surgery. I had 100% block on my right artery. So they prep you when you get a heart catheter, they prep you. So basically they shave you from your neck down to your knees and you're prepped for surgery in case that you need, in my case, immediate bypass surgery. So I'm on this gurney, I'm being wheeled in, and I think everyone's done this before, and where you pray to God. I said to myself, God, if you could get me out of this one, it's kind of a silly little request because there was no way I was going to get out of this. But I said, if you get me out of this, I promise I will spend the rest of my life giving back. And I was 54 years old. So here I am being wheeled in, and right at the door, my doctor looks at me. He says, Paul, I've only offered this to one other person in 20 years and he failed me. But if you're willing to make a lifestyle change, maybe you don't need surgery today. Now, I must tell you, I had no idea what it meant to make a lifestyle change. But what I didn't want to do is have bypass surgery because of my history in my family with terrible results having bypass surgery. So I looked at him, I said, I'll do whatever you want, I'll make the change. So immediately he says, let's hold off on this surgery. And he picks up his cell phone and he calls somebody. And I hear him say, hi, Essie. That's short for Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. He says, I've got somebody I want you to talk to. And this is like 9:30 at night. And Dr. Esselstyn, so think about it. I had never been to the Cleveland Clinic. I had never met my doctor. I had no clue what a lifestyle change was. And I'd never heard of Caldwell Esselstyn. So I'm listening to this guy. He says, go on home and I'll give you a call in the morning. Your life's about to change. So my wife and I got home probably about three in the morning, driving back from Cleveland back to Detroit. And sure enough, at 7:30 in the morning, Dr. Esselstyn called me. We spent an hour on the phone. He explained as much as he could. I immediately got his book, read it end to end, and my lifestyle and my life changed. And that was 12 years ago. To anybody who's contemplating a lifestyle change or anybody who's already done a lifestyle change, the number one thing I'd recommend is you need to be a label reading expert. So I literally spent 3-4 hours at 2 grocery stores looking at the foods I used to consume and disregarding the ones that had anything to do with meat, dairy, or oil. And I was shocked at all the different names of oil. So it was quite a learning period that I had. But also I want to share with everybody, it wasn't just that I had a 100% block in my right artery. I also had an enlarged heart, leaky valves, scarsidosis of the right side of the artery, a heart murmur, and a left bundle block. So I was an absolute hot mess. So what they had to do first is they had to shrink the heart. And as everybody knows, the heart is a muscle. So if you don't work your muscle, they shrink. So basically, they put me on 60-day bed rest. So they gave me some pills and I was sleeping 16 hours a day. And I'm a pretty hyper human being. So it was amazing that I got 16 hours of sleep. But as soon as I'd wake up, I had to cook. And I have never cooked before. I wasn't much of a cook at home. And I had to start eating foods I didn't even like. I was not a big vegetable lover. But I said to myself, I made a promise that I'd make this lifestyle change. And I felt as if I could do anything for 60 days. And I would challenge anybody that you could do anything in 60 days. So I started eating the fruits, the vegetables, the beans, the whole grains. And all of a sudden, massive changes started to occur. In 14 days, my angina went away. Over the 60-day period, I lost like 50 pounds. I've actually lost 65 pounds and I've kept it off for 12 years, which is great as you get older because I'm not carrying the weight that I used to carry. And probably the best thing was all of a sudden my taste buds changed. So now I was starting to get healthy, but I remember the promise that I made. It said, I promised to give something back. So I thought to myself, well, I'm not a cook, so I better learn how to cook. So the Esselstyns had a cooking class. I think the class for a half day was $750. So I drove back to Cleveland. I took the half day cooking class. It was helpful, expensive, but helpful. And I took the invoice they gave me and I sent it to Blue Cross Blue Shield and it got rejected. And I thought, oh my God, sign from God. I'm going to go after Blue Cross Blue Shield to make a change. So when people want to make a lifestyle change, instead of being charged $120,000 for bypass surgery, they could go to an Esselstyn class or for $750 and get it reimbursed. So I started working my way up the chain of command at Blue Cross Blue Shield. And after about 2 months, they told me that the only way I could make a change, which would mean authorize a pay code for reimbursement, was I'd have to work with the Michigan legislature in Lansing, Michigan. I did not want to do that. I was about an hour and 40 minutes away. I didn't want to get into the politics of that, being the second biggest dairy state. So I thought, okay, if I can't give that way, maybe what I'll do is I'll put a $20 ad in the paper. And it was basically a couple lines. It says, if I was able to reverse my heart disease through lifestyle change, if you are interested in the possibility of a healthier heart, I'm inviting you to my house. And within 2 days, I had 20 people within about a 30, 40-mile radius sign up and come to my house. That was the first time I invited people over, and I opened up my pantry. We did label reading. I made them a meal, and we talked. And I thought, wow, this is something. I mean, it was amazing. So I did it again the next month. And within a few days, another 20 people came to the house. So each time they'd come over, I'd have them sign in, give me a phone number, and so I could keep record of it. And I thought, well, okay, I guess this is my give back. But there were a lot of science questions that even though I know them today, back then I didn't have a clue, and I'm not a doctor. So I didn't want to give medical advice to people. So I thought maybe what I need is a lifestyle cardiologist to be by my side for these meetings. I'll just continue having it at my house. So I called the 3 biggest hospitals in Michigan and I said, give me a name of 2 or 3 of your cardiac lifestyle physicians. And they each gave me 3 names, and one name was repeating. It was Dr. Joel Kahn. Well, I had never met Joel Kahn before, but I figured since his name was the repeating one, I'd meet him first. And I introduced myself, called him on the phone, he invited me over, and we decided that we could help each other. He could talk about the science, I could be the testimonial, and he was working at Beaumont Hospital, so we decided to have the 3rd meeting right there at the hospital. And just by word of mouth, and I put flyers in every place I could do in a 30-day period, we had a room that could seat 80, and we had 123 people at our first meeting. And again, we got signups and we got phone numbers, and we decided, well, let's do this again. A month later, usually if you had a second meeting, it would drop down a little bit. We had 141 people show up. So I thought, wow, people really want to improve their health and learn. And there's a lot of sick people out there. So I think we could help them. And we decided that we'd have a 3rd meeting. And 2 days before the 3rd meeting, Beaumont Hospital canceled us, said that our group was getting too big. We found out later they didn't like the idea that we were promoting, this is 12 years ago, the whole food plant-based diet as opposed to our lifestyle instead of the standard American diet, which is what they were promoting. So I had 2 days to find a venue, and I called churches and I called synagogues, and all of a sudden the Birmingham school system opened up their doors and their heart to us. And then I had about 40 hours to call 140, 50 people to invite them into the school system to give another presentation. And that is kind of how the plant-based nutrition support group began. Today, we are the only support group in the country. And while I applaud all these groups around the country that have city groups, you guys usually meet, most of these groups meet once a month, maybe twice, with a few events. I know that you all become friends, so you see each other, but in between all those times, where can you go? So initially, the plant-based nutrition support group was based in Michigan. We'd have live events. I'd have the who's who of all the speakers you could imagine. You name them, they've spoke at PBNSG multiple times. I was very, very fortunate because I got to spend 2, 3 days with each one of them multiple times, so I got to know them personally. And then we started working on projects. So for example, we created a medical course material. Wayne State Medical School asked us to create a nutritional program for them. And instead of doing a program, what we did is we added 4 or 5 items on the 9 systems of the body. And after a year and a half of working with first and second year medical students at U of M, that's University of Michigan, Michigan State, Central Michigan, Oakland University, and Wayne State, we put together a wonderful educational piece on nutrition, and they accepted it. So Wayne State Medical School today has a nutritional aspect to their doctor learning that no other medical school does. Unfortunately, there's no other medical school that I know of that has accredited nutritional classes for doctors. I have since given that to Dr. Michael Clapper, and he is working on trying to get nutritional education at medical schools. Unfortunately, again, it just is not happening. I don't know why, but we also worked with General Motors. We worked with Beaumont Hospital, and the organization grew to where we would have 500 to 1,000 people based on the speaker, along with culinary events. And I can't emphasize enough, our culinary events would have chefs from all over Michigan and all over the country come in, and people who do whole food plant-based cookbooks would share their knowledge with our members. Unfortunately, as we all experienced COVID, so of the members that we had, and at the time, we probably had a couple thousand members at PBNSG. We had to put a hard stop on it because of COVID. I would say maybe 70% of them were 60 and older. So we immediately stopped, I think, January, February of the COVID year, and we went virtual like we are right now. And I always kind of laugh that if COVID did one thing, it taught older people like myself and others how to use Zoom or StreamYard, some other devices. And here we are. Thank goodness for COVID. That's the only thing good about it. So we are now the only support group virtually. Today, we've got about 180,000 followers. And, what I say to people all the time is we are charging but $10 a month. And we've got some 12 to 18 events every single month. So we have speaker events still. We still have culinary events. And now we have strategic support groups. So we've got 12 or 14 different like obesity, heart disease, diabetes, kitchen gadgets, single parents. We have a whole bunch of different categories where if you have heart disease, you could join a group of like-minded people virtually every single month. And it's run by either doctors or nutritionists. And it's just another way to support people as they make a lifestyle change. The thing as I reflect back, making a lifestyle change, here I am 12 years later, and it's still difficult at times. I live in a family divided. And when they go out to dinner and they're eating foods that I don't necessarily agree with, it's tough. Even all these years later, it's tough not to take a bite of this or a bite of that. For me, I just remember how sick I was and how good I feel. So the plant-based nutrition, again, you can reach us at pbnsg.org. you know, the W's in front. And if you want to join us, only $10 a month. You'll enjoy us. Another project I want to share before I maybe open it up for questions is what I kind of learned too is that all the great speakers and all the great people that you follow, that I follow, they're brilliant men and women. But I didn't see them working together as one. No, we don't really have a big voice. Your group, I was told, is about 40, 50 people strong, and that's just wonderful. But, you know, when you think about it, there's maybe 10 or 12 people, the Esselstyns, the Campbells, the Gregors, the Bernards, the Furmans, on, Ornishes, McDougals. And they are, like I said, highly respected, brilliant people. But you don't see them working on projects together. And I thought, you know, how is it that we never hear anything about the dairy industry or the meat association? Is because they're doing so well. They never have issues. They're just making a little gobs of money. So about a year ago, I write open letters every month. And one of them was, what would the plant-based world be like if we shared resources and worked together? So I just kind of tongue in cheek and said, is anybody interested? Give me a holler. I'd like to create a plant-based alliance, association, or union. Within about 4 hours of it posting, a co-founder, Meryl Fury out of Chicago, said, let's do this. And I'm like, wow, what did I get myself into? But I've always felt that we need to have a voice, a bigger voice. And the only way to do it is being like-minded, honest, and collaborate. So the Sage Circle Alliance is going live on May 1st. And this is a chance, if you're a nutritionist out there, a doctor, a health coach, if you're a professional of any kind, and you're vegan, like I'm whole food plant-based guy, but we're opening this up because I have a love of animals and the planet, as well as human health. So if anything touches you in those areas, please look into the Sage Circle Alliance. It's going live May 1st, and it's a way for like-minded people to work together as one. So I hope that you've enjoyed my story. I am open to any questions that anybody may have. And I want to say thank you. I mean, it's kind of nice to be able to share my story with others. Hopefully everyone here is whole food plant-based and doing great. But if you have questions, let me know. I'd love to answer them if I could. Hi, everybody. Yeah, let's ask. Come on. You got me. I'm here.
Yeah, you can talk about that.
I dressed up for everybody.
Hey, Paul, I apologize for not, I had this whole introduction for you, and you weren't even there yet before I did it, so I'm sorry for that awkward little moment we put you in.
No worries. I'm so glad that you're all here today. Thank you.
Well, we're gonna take Q&A now, so if anybody has a question.
Yeah, and if you could turn your mic up a little bit, please. I don't know if you could hear me. I've got you on as high as I can, but if I want to hear you a little bit louder if possible.
You need to move closer to this mic here.
To this one. Okay, well, we'll have people come over here and speak over here. Anybody have a question?
They're all smart. They all know.
Well, let me ask you guys. If you don't want to ask me a question, I'll ask you guys questions. So can I do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Actually, I've got one taker. I've got a
Okay.
taker so far.
All right. Thank you.
And thank
Hey,
you.
by the way, before you ask me that question, there is one thing I forgot on my notes I want to share with everybody. And this might be can everyone hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, you can see I got closer to my video because this is really important. So about a year and a half ago, this is a very important part. I apologize, I didn't bring it up earlier. About a year and a half ago, my angina came back. Now, it was shocking because I've been whole food, plant-based, no oil for 12 years. So I was asking myself, how can this be? So I had to go back to the Cleveland Clinic and get tests done. And I found out that I had an elevated lipoprotein little a. Now, let me ask you, can you zoom me back to the group for a moment, please? I want to ask everybody a quick question. I apologize to the person who's going to ask me a question. We'll get you. How many people in this audience have heard of LP little a? Please raise your hand. Okay, now, okay, look, thank you. Now, how many people here in this group have had heart issues, cardiac issues? Raise your hand, please. All right, wonderful. Okay, not wonderful, but thank you. All right, so it turned out after being whole food plant-based for a full year, I mean, for 12 years, my angina came back. So what is LP little a? It's like a secondary plaque making factory that you're born with. Now, here I am today with whole food, plant-based, and my cholesterol, which I mentioned was 350. Today it's at 88. Okay, so heart attack proof. But last year, this LP little a angina came back. So this LP little a, you're born with it. It's genetic. So I guess the best thing, the takeaway I want to give everyone here today is, please, if you've had cardiac issues, go back to your doctor, like I did, ask for a lipid panel for just your LP little a. It may cost about $35. The LP little a number should be under 50. Mine was at 350. So it was no wonder why I was having the angina. Now, what did I do with the information? First, just to let you know, I sent the open email and letter to everyone of the 180,000 followers I have and said, has anybody had this? What do you do about it? I got one reply, and it took me on a 1-year journey of taking 18 supplements a day, but the combination of niacin, proline, zinc, there's a bunch of different ones. And if anybody wants to know what that is, you could reach me at, and I'll put this in the chat, my email address. I'm going to do that right now. Bear with me for a second. So you could email me directly. And if you want to know the combination, I will send this to you. But I took 18 supplements a day for a year. And as a result of that, it went from 350 down to 203. So it improved. But I said the number has to be under 50. Here's the good news. They are now in phase 3 study for a LP little a drug. And there's 6,000 people, of which 3,000 are placebo, 3,000 get the shot. I am in that study. And the results in phase 2 were a 95% decrease in the LP little a number. So what I guess I'm saying to you is, please, next time you see your doctor, or if you have a heart issue, ask for a lipid panel for LP little a, see what your number is. Remember, it's got to be under 50. If it's way over that, you could take the supplements and help is on the way. It still could be a couple of years from now before it goes to market. The results so far have been really promising. There's my gift to everybody here who's got heart issues or knows somebody who does, which should be everybody. All right, I apologize to the person who wanted to ask the question. I'm here.
Hi, Paul.
How are you? What's your name?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, my name is Doug.
Hi, Doug.
Was recently diagnosed with coronary artery disease. I've been changing my lifestyle for about 6 months now. So the question I have for you is, how long did it take for you to reverse your 100% blockage?
Well, let me say this. Once it's blocked, you can't reverse it. But if I showed you a picture of the x-ray of the right artery, what you would see is a spider's nest right at the block. And they call that collateral arteries, which tells you that my body or your body wants to repair and live. So I've got a whole bunch of little arteries that came out of that blockage. So once it's blocked, though, another thing to share with you is this. Going whole food plant-based, when people think it's going to reverse, they think, wow, I'm going to lose, if it's 70% blocked, if I go whole food plant-based, no oil, it'll be 30, 40% blocked. No, it's going to stop it, and it may reverse it a few points, but you're not gonna see it, a great amount of change. But what I can tell you is it will stop the advancement of the disease.
Okay, so based on that, did you have any stents installed?
When I had the lipoprotein little a, I had to go back to the Cleveland Clinic. And once again, on that gurney, thinking I was gonna need bypass. And as it turned out, I am such a plaque factory. I had a 99% block of my LAD. So I was very, I was close to the deathbed. Thank goodness they did put a stent in. I did not need a bypass. So they did put a stent in me. Now, one thing I have since learned is stent technology, because I asked the question, I said, well, now that you put a stent in me, how long is that going to last? And my cardiologist team said, they've improved it so much that at 66, I probably have it the rest of my life and won't need a replacement or more because I am whole food plant-based. And I hope to be on the LP little a shot and study, and I hope I got the drug. So I'm doing everything I humanly can by living the lifestyle, having low cholesterol now, and hopefully getting the shot that will reduce the LP little a. So yes, I had one stent put in. I wasn't happy about it, Doug, but I'd rather have the stent than the bypass surgery.
And when you made the lifestyle change, aside from changing your diet, did you start exercising as well?
You know what? I've been a exercise. I grew up with the thought of I could eat big because I work out big. Like we all did. I just, I played college baseball. I was always, football in high school, did all the sports, and that transcended throughout my whole life. I was a power lifter for a while. I loved working out. So today, at 66, I still eat whole food plant-based, but for example, I'm a bike rider. So my wife and I today, we rode 25 miles of bike riding. And if I'm not bike riding, I go for a walk. And if I'm not walking, I make sure, and this is probably the most important thing, as we get older, the one thing I am regimented about is I go to the gym and lift weights 5 or 6 times a week for about 30 minutes. And, the big thing is you want to stay as strong as you can. Now, if I told you what I used to lift, Doug, to what I lift now, I laugh. I mean, I used to be able to put up 300 pounds. Today, I'm happy to put up 100 pounds. Okay. But as I get older, I just laugh. I laugh at myself all the time. I'm like, wow, what happened to that big guy? But, you lose 70 pounds, you get 20 years older, you're not that strong. But I just strongly recommend as we get older is we got to, lose the weight, keep working out, and watch what we eat. Just be careful, be aware, be aware. And, there's a lot of things I learned over the years that you could use as substitutes. So, I grew up as a meat potato guy. So I have substitutes now. I can't really substitute for meat or dairy, but, I've created some recipes for butter replacement. I now I played so much around with salad dressings. I've got a good salad dressing. I can make a brownie out of black beans. So, you could just Google anything that you've enjoyed and you can make it plant-based. And if you love oil on things, try, using vegetable broth, use water. Once in a while, I could use some wine. If your onions is in there, just slowly slowly heat the onions. You don't need that oil, and read the labels.
And that follows into my last question. What's your favorite recipe?
Well, I guess the question is, what do I eat the most of? And here, this could be helpful. So I'm pretty regimented and, I'm still a workaholic. So I'm running PBNSG and I'm running the Sage Circle Alliance. So I don't have a lot of cooking time. So here's my hints. Number one is come up with your top 5 or 6. And what I mean is, like, for me, I have either, you're going to love this. I either have a huge kale salad for breakfast and I have Ezekiel bread with it. And I've got my own homemade, if like I said, I've got a homemade salad dressing. So really simple. I take pepper with lemon, lime, and orange. You'll have to figure out the amounts. You know, it's like equal amounts of all. A handful of sesame seeds. I grind it up in a fast blender, and it just sparkles my kale salad. And I steam that kale for about a minute, and it tastes wonderful. So I have that, or oatmeal with all the fruits that you could imagine with soy milk. You choose, be it almond, oat. You know, be careful about oat milk, by the way. It's got oil in it, FYI. But with, you know, almond milk or soy milk, you could choose, you know, pick your poison on the milk, all the fruits in the world that you want. And I have that between the two every single day. I know it sounds kind of boring, but you know, lifestyle change is about making choices. So I kind of grew up spending my whole life centered around what you have for breakfast. Hey, what you have for lunch? What you have for dinner? You know, my whole life was around food. And now it's around family or exercise or reading or whatever else. And I just have to eat because, you know, everyone's got to eat. So probably my favorite recipe, believe it or not, is I have perfected the vegetable barley soup. It's got no oil. It's got every vegetable you could imagine. I usually get a sourdough piece of bread with it, and I have it way more than people should have. So I guess that would be my favorite meal. So what I suggest to everybody. Oh, by the way, I've also perfected. I love using that for me. I perfected something, but I took somebody else's recipe and just worked it. I can make oatmeal raisin cookies that taste wonderful. So I get my sweet fix late at night. So I guess what I'm saying is to think about the foods that you enjoy, then Google it and say, hey, a plant-based, and then fill in the blank. And you could mix and match and play around with things. And the last little hint on cooking is, and this has changed my life, I batch cook everything. So if I'm going to make vegetable barley soup, I will batch cook all the vegetable soup. I'll put the barley on the side. I'll make it separately. But I can make enough for 10 meals. When I make the oatmeal raisin cookies, I wait for a rainy day in Michigan, and I'll make 100 cookies because they freeze wonderfully. So try to batch cook because unless you like cooking, if you like cooking, cook every day. But I don't like cooking and I'm too busy. I hope that was helpful. All right, more questions. Come on.
Okay, I'm an Ashkenazi Jew. We have the most autoimmune diseases of any group in the world. And I never should have had the vaccines. I never should have had the booster. I ended up with AFib. I had an ablation. And now, I mean, I check several times a day. I check my blood pressure, my pulse, and I have extraordinarily insane counts. I mean, today, 89 over 59, and then I think my pulse was like 65, so I have no energy. I'm an aerobics instructor and personal trainer, 43 years. And I'm just wondering, I do eat healthily. I definitely do, but I'm just wondering, have you heard of anybody who has gone through all of these? I have long COVID too. And who's gone through all this that I have medically and who has gone completely to plant-based, and voila, life is so different.
You know, I believe it or not, I gave a talk a couple weeks ago, and I met somebody who's got a series of issues. I mean, just a multitude of concerns or issues. And I just put in the chat, I am connected to, I'm friends with an organization called Love.Life. Now, they used to be called Plant-Based Telehealth. So if you go on to the website and type in Love.Life, you will see their website and send them the question you just asked, because what you just described, they have answers to. But again, I'm not a doctor and I have some thoughts, but I would rather you go to a professional, because if it was like one or two things, no problem. I'd be glad to answer them. But you have a series of concerns, and I would rather you talk to a plant-based doctor first.
Okay.
You know, so I mean, I wish I could give you the magic answer, but I just did. Reach out to love.life. And if for whatever reason, you can't make that connection, you got my email address, just email me and I'll make that connection for you and with you. Okay.
We have it. We'll get it. Anybody else?
And I got that in the, in your chat. Okay.
Speak up.
Hi.
Hold the mic up
Up
Yep.
here?
so you can hear him.
All right.
Yes.
Can you explain the oil issue? And is that only for people with heart disease? Or can you just explain the whole oil thing for us a little bit? Thanks.
So right now in the plant-based world, there's a handful of plant-based doctors who are saying, if you get the first pressed oil, you could have a little bit of it along the way. It might be good for you. So there's an open discussion and dialogue, whether it's good or bad. For heart disease, what it does is it blocks the endothelial cell of patients. They don't want anything that you consume to affect the endothelial cell of your blood. That's for heart disease patients. The other reason on the oil piece is that it's the most densest amount of calories. I don't know, it's like 300, 400, 500 calories per tablespoon. So if you're trying to lose some weight and you're consuming a lot of oil, that's a lot of calories. But I can't say whether or not, like for a heart patient, you should not have oil. But if you're healthy, I would probably, as a non-doctor, I would say just have a little bit of it. If you're trying to lose weight, you should try to not have oil. So that's kind of where things are in the oil world. And then there's different types of oil. Some are better than others. So olive oil is better than coconut oil or canola oil. And again, I would always say that, there's a lot of great information on, the benefits of oil versus not oil. Right now, most people are saying no to oil. But again, I think that's what I could say. It's dense with calories, not good for heart patients. Hopefully that was helpful.
Hi, this is Sarah.
Hi.
Hi.
Talking to both.
Hi, this is Sarah.
Back up a little
Hi,
bit. There you
Sarah.
go.
Hi. Two questions. Number one, the lipid panel, did you say LTA?
No, it's called lipoprotein little a. So it's LP little a. So make it a big L, a big P, and a little a. And your doctor,
Okay.
the scary part is a lot of doctors are just learning about it. But if you Google LP little a, you'll know probably more than your doctor will.
Okay. Also, what was explained to me, there's two types of heart disease. There's electrical and plumbing, to make it easy. You had the plumbing, the blockage.
Right.
Okay, I have the electrical. So with the plant-based, though I've just started it and I'm excited about it for many reasons, does it help the electrical problems?
Well, you're
Yeah.
talking about like AFib, right? Like, or
It's racing heart, enlarged heart, the irregular heartbeat,
Right.
etc.
I would say to you, from my experience, is that the whole food plant-based for cardiac patients is really helpful for the plumbing, and unfortunately on the electrical, because I have a left bundle block, so I've got a combination of both. And there's not much they could do for the left bundle block. And if I needed a pacemaker, plant-based nutrition's really not going to matter. Now, I wish I had something more magical for you, but that's the truth.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
Paul, we'd love to hear what you had to ask us.
Yeah, I guess what I want to say is, anybody who's trying this, I would suggest if you really want to make a lifestyle change, I'm a fan of a 60-day trial. But what you should do is go to your doctor and get a full lipid panel, which will give you a chance to see exactly where your A1C is, your triglycerides are, and then all of your iron and all, it'll tell you everything about you. And then you go 60 days. I think anybody could do anything for 60 days and then have it tested again. There'll be a little bit of cost on both ends. But here's my promise. If you go whole food plant-based, and let's just go with the idea of no oil, within a 60-day period, you'll have lost 20 or 30 pounds. But just see what your number differences are. Look at what your energy level's like. And to me, it was the fountain of youth for me. All of a sudden, I feel good every day. I'm not sore every day. And, I'm not carrying that extra 70 pounds every day. My friends are getting hip and knee replacements, all these replacements. I feel pretty good because I'm just lighter. So I would say as a group, because you seem to be a wonderful big group, maybe you could work together on an internal challenge of say, let's try 30 or 60 days and, see if you could get a local doctor who will sponsor it and give you a chance to reclaim all of your health and give you a lipid panel on the front end and the back end. It will be an amazing day when you see what it's like if you try it for 60 days. And the last little part is, I mentioned before, I love my family and I've got a great family, but we're very different in how we look at things. It's a house, as you've heard before, a house divided. And all I could share with you is that for 12 years, I got to take care of me first. And it's difficult at times. But again, I'm just reminded of how sick I was at a very young age. So, if you have any individual challenges, I could be reached at paul@pbnsg.org, and I'll respond back to you very shortly. I'm going to be doing some traveling, but I promise anybody who emails me with a question, I'll respond back to you. And I want to say thank you to everybody who listened to me today. Thank you so much.